Now that we know what a unit standard is, we need to go and look at the structure of that document, as it contains a lot of information that will be helpful during your preparation for the assessment. Let's start by looking at the heading, which clearly states that this is a South African Qualifications Authority document and it is a registered unit standard. Next, you want to take note of the title of the unit standard. For obvious reasons, you want to make sure that you're busy with the right one. The ID of the unit standard is used by many training providers as a reference, so it's good to know what it is. Below the title, you'll find additional fields identifying the unit standard. Pay attention to things like the credits assigned and the level of this unit standard. But of particular interest is the registration status of the unit standard. Make sure that this is a registered unit standard and it's not still in public comment or already passed its registration status. Pay attention to a field called last date for enrollment, as this will impact whether or not you can actually be assessed against this unit standard. Below the identification information for the unit standard, you'll find a section called the purpose of the unit standard. This is, in short, an outline of what a course should cover that prepares you for this unit standard. It also tells you what you should know by the time you attempt this assessment. Below this, in the section titled Learning Assumed to be in Place, you'll see a list of courses, or rather assessments, that you should have done. And if not the assessments, you should already have knowledge of these points, like for instance English, mathematical skills, or in this particular case how to operate a computer, a personal computer. When being assessed against a unit standard, it's important to know what forms part of the unit standard and what falls outside of what's being assessed in this particular unit standard. The next section, the unit standard range, describes what is included in this particular assessment. Now we get to the meat of the unit standard. In the specific outcomes, the purpose statements that we encountered earlier are expanded into actual assessment statements. These tell the assessor and yourself exactly what you're going to be assessed on. Each specific outcome is a purpose statement. It describes what needs to be assessed. This specific outcome is broken down into assessment criteria or assessment statements, which states how each one of these will be assessed. Where required, these assessment statements or assessment criteria are broken down into assessment criteria range statements, and this simply gives you and the assessor a guide as to how much needs to be assessed. For instance, if you need to copy something, do you need to copy it with the mouse and keyboard, or with the mouse, keyboard and your commands on the ribbon? After all this very specific skills that's been described in the assessment, you don't use any of this in isolation. The section called Essential Embedded Knowledge describes the background information, the background knowledge that you use, that you draw on when you apply all of these skills. Added to this, the critical cross-field outcomes explain how all this knowledge integrate into the world around you. And these critical cross-field outcomes also gives the assessor a guideline as to how to ensure that the assessment tests this overall integration with the world around you.